When God speaks, He doesn't dwell on the present or even on the past. He's well aware of your present circumstances and He may make reference to your past. But when He speaks about the future. Welcome to another discussion on today's headline tomorrow. Today we want to examine how God speaks. We look at the story of Abraham. God called him and told him, I will make you a father of nations. Your descendants will be innumerable, like the stars of heaven or like the sand on the seashore. But in the present, Abraham was yet to have even one child. So, why does God do this? God talks about the future because He is Alpha and Omega. He is the beginning and He is the end. He has seen the end even while you're still at the beginning. While you're still in that circumstance, while you're going through that situation, God already is at the end of the story. And when He is speaking to you, He's speaking to you about what the end is so that you can trust Him. As He gives you His promise, it's not just a promise, it's a confirmation that no matter how bleak things look right now, this is what the end looks like. And that is supposed to build your trust and give you peace as you go through whatever situation that life has thrown at you. So I would speak about the story of Joseph. Joseph was a young teenager when he had a dream in which he saw that he would be at an elevated position even above his brothers. Let's not forget that Joseph was one of the 12 sons of a very wealthy man named Jacob. This man is wealthy not only because he inherited a vast amount of wealth from Abraham, from his grandfather Abraham, and then his father Isaac, but he was wealthy because he himself had entered into the blessing of God. He had 4 wives. I mean, how many people can afford 4 wives? Remember when he was leaving the house of Laban, he left with so much company that he had to divide them into 3 groups when he was afraid of confronting his brother Esau. So Joseph was from a very wealthy home, one of the top wealthy men in that generation. And then here was he having a dream that among his brothers he would rise even far above them. Yet, when the life challenges began, not only did it start with him being sold into slavery, before he was even sold into slavery, being put in a well to starve to death. What would be going on in his mind right then? This dream has not come to pass. This cannot be my end. And then he was sold to slavery. And being sold as a slave, it would likely have started at a very low level in the household where he was put in. Before he became raised to become the head of the slaves, he would have gone through a period of serving where he had proved himself. So while he was there, a lonely slave in a foreign land, nothing looking like the dream, he had to remind himself, this is not who I am. So he composed himself according to what had been revealed about him. And that was why he continued to grow till he got to that elevated position. But even being the head of slaves is not who he was called to be. His brothers, the children of a wealthy man, a very wealthy man, are going to bow to him. Now he is a slave in the house of another wealthy man in a strange land. Head of slave is not the same as the heir. He is a heir where he's coming from, and here he is made to become a slave. They are not the same. So this understanding, this realization, this consciousness was one of the things that empowered him to be able to say no to the advances of Potiphar's wife. What has God said about you? Because the things God say about you will be the things that will help you to say no when the enemy brings you things less than that. We remember the story of Jesus too, when he finished fasting for 40 days in the wilderness, and the devil came to the devil, Satan, came to tempt him. He tempted him with all manner of things. Oh, what of that wonderful temptation when he says, look at the entire world, how beautiful it is. I will give everything to you if you would just bow. In that moment, what was the thing that made Jesus not to bow? It wasn't because he was the Son of God. Don't forget, he was in the flesh as a man, and he had been starving for 40 days. Oh, there is no state more vulnerable than that. However, he understood that there is a glory that awaits, a glory that exceeds even this one that he can see. And so, even if the future glory is not yet a reality, I would not trade it for this temporal glory. So whatever life is bringing your way, when it does not conform with what God has said about you, do not bow. Now let's go back to the story of Joseph. Joseph was cast into prison for something he did not do. And imagine what people would have said about him. One of the slaves he met in Potiphar's house, who later he became the chief over them, and they had to respect him and take instructions from him. How would they react when they find out now? In fact, I'm sure by the time Potiphar's wife cried out that he tried to, get intimate with her, those were the category of people that would have, pushed on for him to receive the gravest punishment because of jealousy and envy. And while he was in the prison, they may even come by once in a while to check on him and say, boy, you are still here? Yeah. And you should have been contented. And why would you go after the master's wife? And to whom will he explain that it was a false accusation? But while he was in prison, he did not allow those situations to prevent him from remaining focused on what the Lord had revealed about his future. And that affected his disposition even in that prison, even in that low state. How can the son of a wealthy man become a prisoner in a foreign land? But yet, he carried himself with the consciousness of who he is, what God says about him, not who he appears to be in the physical. And because of that, his appearance was always being affected by his courage. No wonder even in the prison, he was made the head of the prisoners. But that wasn't God's call to him. Not that prisoners will bow. Yes, prisoners will bow, but free men are going to bow. Not just free men, but men of substance and influence are coming to bow. And we see at the end of the day that dream came to be. Not only did his brothers bow, but he was made prime minister over the ruling nation of the world at that time. What has God said about you? God does not speak about the present, but he knows about your present. God does not speak about your past, though he can make reference to your past. God speaks about your future, and he expects you to believe it. He expects you to trust him, and he expects you to hold on to it no matter what you are seeing. So what has God told you? Most times, God shows us the future because he knows that the present or even the nearest future may not seem to agree. You may currently be in a situation that does not agree with what God has said concerning you. Or perhaps you will find yourself in a situation like that in the nearest future. But he has given you a glimpse of the future so that you can have peace and your focus can be shaped, so that you can be guided on how to react to the circumstance. That's why the scripture tells us that we walk by faith and not by sight. He is the one who declares the end from the beginning. So what happens if you do not have a glimpse of the future? Do not grope about in darkness like the blind. Call unto him and ask him. He says, come, let us reason together. He says, call to me, and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things which you know not of. So why not ask him, Lord, what does my future hold? I know that right now I'm in a lowly state. Maybe right now you're struggling to pay your rent. Maybe right now you can't afford your children's school fees. Maybe right now you don't have food on your table. Maybe right now you're out of job. Maybe right now it looks like you're approaching your 40s or even above your 40s, and there is no partner in your life, not to talk of getting married. Perhaps you've been waiting on God for the fruit of the womb. Perhaps you've been trusting God to travel, but you don't even know why nothing is working. You've tried to make it in the country you are, it's not working out. You've tried to leave, it's not working out. Or maybe you've even traveled to different countries, and yet in all of these places, nothing is working out. Can you take a moment to stop and just ask him, what does my future hold? Let him show you that picture. Let him give you that glimpse into what he has planned for you, because that gives you peace. When Jesus told the disciples, let us go on to the other side, and they got into the boats, Jesus went to sleep because he knew we will get to the other side. The storm arose for the disciples to have cried out, trained fishermen who have decades of experience, to cry out to a man that has never fished and said, do you not care that we perish? It's because there was probably water in the boat already, and the boat was looking like it was on the verge of sinking. What situation in your life looks like you are on the verge of sinking? Can you trust the one who says, let us go on to the other side? That he will take you there. He will get you there safely. And you're going to come out of even this circumstance with a testimony. God bless you.